God willing, I will be FI within 15 years, hopefully sooner. And that'll allow me to do things that are more community oriented. So I do coach my girls soccer team. I do like to volunteer at my church. I like to do things like that. I know that sounds kind of like, corny when people say like, I'm just doing charity, right? Well, I mean, yes, it makes sense to make money, but the more you give, I feel like the universe just gives back to you. And I really believe in that like karma aspect of life and just kind of pumping the brakes a little bit.
Investing for retirement takes time, patience, and consistency. Eventually, you'll reach a point where you don't need to contribute any more money to hit your retirement goals, and that's what we call Coast Fire. On our Coast Fire segment today, we're going to interview Marko Zlatic from the Whiteboard Finance YouTube channel. Marko hit this Coast Fire milestone in his mid-30s. Today, we're going to learn how he accomplished this family financial goal and how this affects his journey going forward. Welcome to the show, Marko.
Thanks for having me, Andy. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad that you and I shopped at the same closet today. We're both wearing our nice blue shirts to match the interview. Let's jump right into the Coast Fire 5. This is quick, short answers where people get an understanding of this Coast Fire journey you've been on. Let's start with number 1. How much do you have invested for retirement?
So between my wife and I, we have about $730,000 saved up.
$730,000. Okay, and how old are you and your spouse?
So I'm 36. My wife is 32.
Awesome. That is incredible. Okay, and now based on your Coast Fire calculations, how much will you have in retirement if you don't contribute anything else?
Yeah, so I did this a couple different ways. So I used a Coast Fire calculator, then I used a compound interest calculator. So if I didn't touch that 730 for 20 years, and let's just say it averaged at 5% ROI without contributing anything else, it would be just under $2 million. It would be at 1.93 million.
Let's jump over to number 4 then, because you kind of alluded to this a little bit. How much income will this potentially provide you in retirement for number 4 then?
I'm your typical 1.5 million to 2 million nest egg, which will yield anywhere from, let's just say, 50 to 75 grand a year.
And then number 5, then, how much income do you guys need to live comfortably today as comparison?
The total annual expenses is about 80,000 a year for both of us, for the household.
Awesome. Yeah. So based on your numbers, where you're projecting things, it's right in that area, especially as you're talking about pensions and, God willing, Social Security as we get older on in life. Let's talk about your starting out point. When did you start investing? And then generally, what got you motivated to build this wealth that you have at this point in your life?
Yeah, that's a great question. So basically, I think you and I, we have similar backgrounds. We're both Midwest guys, family oriented, but way before that, I was always very entrepreneurial. I like to create, like mixtapes, sell them at school. I sold Pokemon cards, did all that stuff that you do like in middle school, right? And then I realized, okay, wealthy people don't sell Pokemon cards or make, legal mixtapes and sell them at lunch. What do? Most of them, they either get into equities or real estate, right? That's typically been the 2 biggest wealth builders in recent American history. So I started a Trade King account because I'm similar age as you, a little bit younger, but this is when you had to actually pay money per trade, right? There's a commission just to make a trade. Now that's like a funny idea now in 2024. It doesn't even exist for the most part. But Trade King was $4.95 a trade. And I started in 2006 when I was 18 years old. And I studied finance at school. And that's kind of when I transitioned from individual stocks to spiders, ETFs, index funds, things like that.
What was the point at which you said, okay, this individual stock thing is fun and it can be lucrative, but index funds can pay off better in the long run? What happened, I guess?
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I still buy individual stocks just for fun here and there, but a majority of my net worth is in index funds. That happened in most likely my senior or junior year of college. So I was probably 21 at the time. It was Professor Washington. He's a financial advisor. This is when ETFs and stuff started to really get some steam behind them. This was like Vanguard, State Street, that kind of a time period. So I'd say about 15 years ago now. So I'm 36, and this was about early 20s, right around there.
So you've been investing for quite a while. Obviously, in order to amass this amount of money, it takes time, consistency, and a lot of patience. Now, when you met your wife, was she also somebody who cared about investing, or is this been Marko led? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, we couldn't. That's a great question, Andy. We couldn't be more polar opposites. I'm, type A entrepreneurial finance math spreadsheet brain, and she's like nurse, giving, caring, feminine, gentle, non-math brain. And I mean that in a good way. So we complement each other very well, but I defer all the medical stuff to her. She defers all the financial stuff to me, and it's a good fit.
Yeah, I have a similar relationship with my wife. She when we came together in the marriage, she didn't have any debt and had planned well financially, but she's definitely the more fun one in the relationship, I would say, and helps me to, hang out a little bit better and think about life is for living. And actually, a big part of why I was so drawn to this Coast Fire concept was because of her, because it's like, well, eventually you get to a point where you just don't need to keep investing forever, right? It just keeps building and building and building. I don't want to die with millions and millions of dollars. I want to also enjoy life today. So kudos to our wives. I guess I'm just, it's a wife tangent, right?
It's one of the biggest decisions you make, man, is who you marry, right? She can either compliment you and support you or take half your stuff and leave, right? So
I agree. And I've interviewed some of these behavioral psychologists about marriage, and I think we tend to marry people that are opposite of us because of that reason. Because we're like, no, I already have me. I get enough of me already. Like, let me marry somebody else that's it enhances some other sides of my life for sure.
100%.
Let's talk specifically about your investment portfolio. When people hear Coast Fire and all the investments that make that up, what is that? What does your investment portfolio look like?
Yeah, so I'd say a majority of my net worth is in VTI. It's just basically Vanguard's total stock market fund, nothing special or fancy. But essentially, when you look at all these studies over years, the people that perform the best are people that are dead, right? They don't touch their portfolio. They just dollar cost average or invest, and they never touch it, and they let the market do its thing. Are there factors at play, macroeconomic factors? There always are, right? There's always going to be a reason that it could be the BRICS, it could be the petrodollar, it could be, interest rates, it could be national debt, it could be a million things, right? But as long as the United States has a strong economy and we still have a great environment for entrepreneurship and innovation and things like that, U.S. dollar dominance is so strong to where, why would I put my money anywhere else? And that may be, I may regret that statement, but I've been doing it for 18 years and it's worked out, and I travel internationally a lot, and I see a lot of restrictions like in the European Union. There's up and coming areas like India and potential, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South America, South Africa. But when you think about it in the long term, our market, we have the deepest, broadest capital markets in the world, and it's gone up and to the right for so long. Will the party stop one day? I have no idea. I have other investments for that. But for now, index funds and U.S. total stock market is a majority of my net worth.
I love that. And then as far as the pre-tax, after-tax, taxable, do you break it down into those different areas? Or are you mostly focused on one? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So for the most part, my order of operations has usually been, Roth IRA, HSAs, things like that. But when you get to a certain income level, you have to start looking at, backdoor Roths and mega backdoors and things like that. There's a ton of great resources online for that. But for the most part, between my wife's income and my income, we haven't really been eligible. And I don't mean this like with my nose in the air or pinky in the air, but I'm saying you just made too much money to where it's like, okay, I got to skip the Roth. I got to get a little bit more creative. But I will say, as a business owner, and you may have a similar setup as well, and your listeners may as well, but some of it's in a SEP IRA. So it's basically paying myself, for my business and then getting that tax deduction ahead of time, reducing my taxable liability for that year. And then I really like the Roth IRA because you can take out whatever you put in, penalty free. And there's also HSAs, things like that, where you get multiple benefits from, different tax advantage perspectives. But ultimately, a lot of this stuff is sitting in a taxable brokerage account. A lot of it is. And the reason for that is just because it's super flexible. And I like to have that flexibility. Sometimes I don't want to wait till I'm 59 and a half. Sometimes I don't want to have a penalty at risk. And outside of the retirement stuff for my wife and I, we also do have a material amount of money in our daughter's 529 plan. So we have two little girls. And I wasn't the biggest fan of 529s, but ever since the Secure Act, I think 2.0 passed, a lot of that stuff can transition into an IRA after 15 years of the account being open. So worst case scenario, if my daughters want to become plumbers or not go to school or whatever, I mean that in a good way actually, or go the blue collar route, that's not just going to be a wasted 529 plan where I have to take a 10% hit. It can be transferred to their IRA. They can do more things with it. So that's the reason for that order of operations, if you will.
Are you ready to control your finances and improve your life? Well, our sponsor, PocketGuard, could be your new best friend. PocketGuard is focused on helping you achieve your financial dreams and experiencing a brighter future. They do this by providing you a quick reference guide to your finances in just a few seconds. PocketGuard puts all of your accounts in one place, helps you schedule and track all your recurring expenses, and grow your net worth. Available for iOS or Android devices, PocketGuard is trusted by over 1 million subscribers and growing. If your goal is debt freedom, coast fire, or just simply to watch your net worth grow, PocketGuard is a smart tool that will help you achieve your big money goals. To get a 30-day free trial of PocketGuard, use the links below or click the link in our video description. I like that a lot, and I think just personally, I think I had an overemphasis on the pre-tax and the after-tax and not enough emphasis on the taxable. I didn't really realize I'd be moving into this sort of entrepreneurial space in my life and have the ability to kind of create my own retirement and things like that. So I wish I would have done a little bit more of that breakdown, and I'm trying to do that now, but in my early 40s, it's a little harder to build up, hundreds of thousands of dollars in a taxable. But, lo and behold, it is what it is. Now, I wanted to ask, you're in your mid 30s. Bonds, is that something that you're thinking about? Do you even have an allocation for that? Or again, another thing that I feel like I overemphasized a little bit on my investing journey, and I've definitely pulled back on. But I wanted to ask your take on that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the 60-40 portfolio historically has done well. That's why it's been a staple in so many financial advisors, back pocket, if you will. But if you look at the last few years, especially after COVID, the 60-40 portfolio got decimated, got absolutely crushed. So for me, it's kind of hard because when you see, your buddies buying high flying tech stocks and they're making, 2-3x, and you're sitting here in like a little index fund feeling like a peasant, it's hard to, want to, I'm selling all my bonds and going straight into Nvidia, right? Or Tesla or whatever the flavor of the day is, or some SPAC, right? We all saw how that turned out. So my point is that I'm more of a slow and steady investor. I was typically a Boglehead 3-fund portfolio investor, so international, domestic, and BND for the most part. I got rid of all my BND a couple years ago, and I don't have much exposure to bonds in general outside of a target date fund. It's like a 2055 Vanguard target date fund, which I haven't really touched for years. But I'm not consciously or actively buying bonds right now. They do have a time and place, and I think if we do go into a somewhat of a hard landing, heaven forbid if it's not a soft landing, bonds have done well in those periods. But for the most part, we're cutting rates, we're partying like it's 1920s, like give me all the equities you can right now. But I will probably regret that statement, but a very long-winded answer is no, I'm not consciously or actively buying bonds right now.
Yeah, I'm feeling a lot of what you're saying and mimicking it too as well with a lot of the decisions I've made recently too. I wanted to ask you, this coast fire realization. I know you've played around with these calculators in the past. I know you've made some videos on it personally. Has this realization changed your investing journey at all, or is this sort of like, hey, I'm gonna just double down because, hey, I see the fruits of my investing labor? What do you think about this coast fire realization?
Yeah, that's a great question as well, Andy. So I'm kind of like, I see both sides of the coin to where it's like, to me, I'm a box checker. I like checking boxes. So pay off the car loan, pay off the house, pay off this, just check the box on the to-do list. It's done. I don't have to worry about it ever again, right? So when I look at coast fire, to me, that's just like checking another box. I think coast fire is the most reasonable form of fire out there. When people want to go full FI, they sacrifice a lot, right? I'm not sacrificing traveling. I'm not sacrificing eating out a reasonable amount of times a month or week, right? Some people, when they go into full FI mode, it's like, why even be alive? It's like you're sacrificing literally every single pleasure out there. So I thought, for me, coast fire is the most reasonable form of FI. And for me, it's a realistic box that I could check at a relatively young age. So if I just pull up my spreadsheet right now at certain income levels, my box is already checked at age 50 for a certain annual spend with that 4% safety withdrawal rate. If I look at a little higher amount, I have age 55 checked off, right? So it can only get better from there, knock on wood, if the market does what it's supposed to do and these assumptions are correct, right? No one has a crystal ball. But the other side of the coin is, say, for example, I'm supposed to reach FI at age, let's say 55. That's still 19 years from now. Who the hell knows what's going to happen in 19 years, right? But if you look at historical returns, the market has gone up and to the right. Yes, I feel like it's getting a little frothy. Yes, I feel like after 07, 08, that changed a lot of people's perspectives on what the market even is and how it operates. However, I understand the game and I'm willingly playing it. Will that change in 19 years? I don't know. But that's also why I like the taxable account, is because it's very liquid. And if things do turn, sour quickly, and I do have other opportunities to invest outside of equities, I can liquidate that account pretty quickly, which I haven't and I won't. That goes against my entire mantra of just dollar cost average, set it and forget it. But you also can't be an ostrich with your head in the sand either. So you have to be a little bit of an active investor as well.
Yeah, I love that. Now you're a dad. Do you think, as somebody who's gotten interested in financial independence and FIRE, do you think Coast FIRE is more realistic for parents?
100%. And I also, I respect you a lot, Andy, because you and I are very similar. I see, I follow you on Instagram. I see what you do with your kids. For me, my kids are everything, right? It's like they love you, and I have 2 little girls, so they love me more than their mom. No, I'm just kidding. But, as the father, the girls always gravitate towards the dad for the most part. So I love them with all my heart. But to answer your question, I feel like when I had my kids, I went into like psycho debt payoff mode, even low interest rate, stuff that didn't even make sense to pay off, if that makes sense. Like my mortgage was very low, right? We got our mortgage in July of 2020. Okay, so you can go back and look at what mortgage rates were back then compared to where they are, just a year ago or 6 months ago. So the reason I did all that is because for me, I'm a box checker and I want to live my life somewhere in the golden middle. So again, I'm not being, psycho FI, giving up every pleasure on earth. But I think Coast FIRE, again, is the most reasonable way to do that, because once that's checked off, that Coast FIRE amount that you're investing or dollar cost averaging to get to that Coast FIRE, once that box is checked, you can pile all that money into experiences with your kids, right? You can travel, you can take them to amusement parks, you can take them overseas, you can do whatever. And that box is checked to where no one knows anything, but you're confident that you're going to be good 15, 20, 25 years from now once you do hit that FI number. And you can still kind of enjoy life while you can still enjoy it. I'm a big die with zero kind of guy. Not 100% die with zero, because I do want to leave my kids with something, obviously. But I feel like you can only enjoy certain things in your life at certain ages, right? Like I just got back from Rome. My wife and I were in Rome. I see these people in the tour group, they can barely walk. They're in their late 70s, right? And more power to them for doing it. But I'm not trying to enjoy Rome at 76. I'm trying to enjoy it at 36, right? So that's kind of my life philosophy.
I love that. Yeah, I've enjoyed the book and started to live a little bit of that philosophy too. I think about, hey, I want to be a skier. I want to do these things that are active. And it's like, okay, well, eventually I'll have money to do all those things in my 60s or 70s. But then you're like, I don't think my knees are going to want to handle skiing at that point, or I'm not going to want to. Yeah. So life is for living. And if this helps you to do that a little bit more, we're not talking about irresponsibility. Obviously, we've both done some good things here with investments. And if it allows you to have that bit of freedom, even just psychologically, it could make a big difference for your mental well-being, for your family, as well as you. I have one more question before we go, because I enjoy talking to you so much. You're doing really well. You and your family are doing really well financially, and you're moving towards this really great, comfortable spot of wealth. What's exciting to you over the next 5, 10, 15 years of your life?
Yeah, another great question. I know I keep saying that, but these are very thought-provoking. So for this one, I'm somewhere, it's weird because I am kind of like entrepreneurial. I like shiny object syndrome. I have a lot of ideas. I like to start businesses. But at the same time, all my travels, my ethnicity is Serbian. My parents are immigrants from Serbia. I was born in Cleveland. But the more I go back to like the Mediterranean parts of Europe, the more I realize like you don't need to be giving it 110% at all times, right? Like people over there, watching soccer, having a coffee, smoking a cigarette, whatever, just relaxing, right? Yes, they don't make as much money as we do in the United States. Some people do, some people don't, but they also have a very deep, meaningful life. A lot of friends, a lot of family, a lot of time, right? And that's also a double-edged sword. I'm not telling you to be some, sloth, but at the same time, that 110% go, 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 New York City minute kind of an attitude is what I'm trying to gravitate away from the older I get. So to answer your question, the next 5, 10, 15 years, knock on wood, God willing, I will be FI within 15 years, hopefully sooner. And that'll allow me to do things that are more community oriented. So I do coach my girls soccer team. I do like to volunteer at my church. I like to do things like that. I know that sounds kind of like, corny when people say like, I'm just doing charity, right? Well, I mean, yes, it makes sense to make money, but the more you give, I feel like the universe just gives back to you. And I really believe in that like karma aspect of life and just kind of pumping the brakes a little bit. So not being lazy, sitting in a cafe all day watching soccer, but also not 110% calendars completely full, got to be busy every minute of every day and squeeze every ounce of productivity out of life as well.
I absolutely love that statement, and it's not corny at all. I love that. I mean, that's really, if I feel like the meaning of life is we've got time here on this planet to help others, grow our family. Yes, leave things better than we left them. I love that, Japanese culture. It's like, hey, if you were there and you spent some time in that spot, what can you do to act like you were never there, but then also make it a little bit better. There's so many ways that we can learn from different cultures around the world, and obviously ways that we can improve things personally. Sure. And you've definitely helped us out with that today. Marko, you have an excellent YouTube channel. A lot of people probably watching this know all about it, but for those that don't, please tell them where to go to connect with you and learn more.
Yeah, thank you so much, Andy. I appreciate you having me on. My channel is called Marko Whiteboard Finance. I teach in front of a big dry erase board. Sometimes I teach stuff through the computer. Sometimes I do it in more of a classroom setting. So that's on YouTube, Whiteboard Finance, Instagram, Whiteboard Finance, and Twitter, Whiteboard Fin, Fin.
And Marko, am I correct in saying that this channel is moments away from 1 million subscribers?
You are, but I say that
that's cool, man.
You're 100% right. It's a vanity metric because I see channels like yours. So much value. I love watching your videos. I will listen to a lot of your interviews, and I appreciate you having me on. Channels like yours deserve a lot more subs, but don't look at just the number. That's a vanity metric. Look at the value. So, ton of value from your channel.
I'll give you some vanity today. I think it's fantastic. You've helped a lot of people, and especially when you can break it down in easy fashion on a whiteboard and break it down so people understand. I think that's really the value you're providing. Marko, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Andy, thank you so much, man.
Want to see how close you are to Coastfire? Well, check out our free Coastfire calculator right on our website at marriagekidsandmoney.com. You can access it with the links below. You insert a little bit of information, hit the calculate button, and see how close you are to hitting Coastfire. Check it out.